Welcome to Conversate, our podcast where we engage in conversation. On this week's episode, Aaron and Kevin are leaning into the waiting season, the season of Advent, the beginning of the church new year. And so in this conversation, you'll hear us talk about our own struggles and joys and learning how to wait and seeing God's activity in it all. And so we hope that this is encouraging to you. And as always, our goal of this podcast is that you'll hear something that we are talking about and you'll go start another conversation with somebody else, or hopefully put something into practice. As always, we hope you enjoy it.
What's up, dude?
Kevin.
Hey, man. Hey.
Hey.
Anytime we start saying hey,
Yeah.
like if in my household, like if William was around,
Yeah.
he'd start saying, hey. And then he would try to attempt to rap the lyrics of that song that we played in your van that one day when you drove my children with us to our Winkle.
What song?
Remember that song?
Oh, yeah.
That hit, dude. How could you not remember? I'm surprised you haven't made it your ringtone.
Wow, this is the stuff that podcasts are made of, where you and I talk about random stuff that nobody knows.
You got to. That's what keeps people mystified.
And mostly, I don't even know what you're talking about. This is Kevin enjoying Kevin.
Well, this sounds like, never mind. I was going to make a comment about your mug.
Well, once you reach the 40s, you will find maturity and wisdom.
It's coming. It's coming down the pike. I think I can make it in another 6 years.
6 years.
Isn't that crazy?
I don't think you can wait. Boom.
I'm going to have to.
Yeah, you're going to have to.
Well, unless we develop... Even if you develop the time machine, you can't just time travel. That doesn't age you. Apparently traveling through space ages you, though.
I've heard.
Have you heard? There was like that story of like the twins.
Yeah.
Like one was on Earth and another was an astronaut.
Yeah.
And then like they came back and they were like slightly different ages or something.
By like seconds.
Yeah. They could see it.
Yeah.
The one guy had one little gray mustache hair.
I knew it.
How did they measure that?
I don't know. It's just time.
Oh, okay. So they just like applied whatever mathematical like theorem there would be essentially.
I don't know how it works.
I don't know. We got to get Peter Pietolo around. Let's get him on. He's got the answers.
That would be an interesting conversation.
Well, it sure would. Well, anyways, enough inside jokes.
Welcome to the podcast, everybody.
Hey.
Join us for a conversation.
Yeah. Well,
That's mostly what it is. It's just us hanging out and talking.
that's right. And occasionally making our viewers wait for us to actually say something of meaning and value for them.
You know what would be a fun podcast? Is where we say hello, and then it's just silence for 30 minutes or so, and then we say, well, that was good. Goodbye. If you turned on a podcast like that, would you wait out the 30 minutes?
Absolutely not.
How long would you give it?
I'd give it about 3 seconds before I started advancing the ticker, just to see if like maybe there was like a weird audio. I'm assuming in this scenario, it's not visual, it's just audio.
Yeah, of course.
And so, then I would move the tracker forward. And if nothing happened halfway in, then I'd move it forward more. And if there was still nothing, I'd say, well, they screwed up. And then I'd look at the comment section, if there was a comment section, and see, is anyone else having the same experience as in my audio?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I'd go about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that are worth waiting for, and there are things that are not worth waiting for.
That's fair. That's fair. That's
like
fair.
paint drying, for instance. Probably. Well, you should probably wait for that before you like apply a second coat. But
Oh man, I was watching a pot try to boil the other day,
fool's errand.
and then my wife told me to put the lid on, and it's not like a glass lid; it was like a full lid.
Yeah.
And she was like, "That's going to keep the heat in, and it'll make it boil faster." I was like, "Well, how am I going to know when it's boiling?"
Mm-hmm.
That was our conversation.
How did it go? How did it resolve?
I put the lid on.
Okay.
And then I took it off a couple seconds later and watched it. Guess what? It eventually boiled.
Nice.
They say a watch pot never boils. Lies. I watched it.
Smithbusters. Broken. Busted.
Yeah. Waiting is hard.
It is hard to wait. Yeah. What's something that well, I mean, that's a legitimate story from your life. Waiting for a pot to boil. Well, that's fair. That's fair. There's all sorts of like little
I told you. So here's a positive spin though. I told you this morning, 'cause Kevin's got his car over at the tire shop getting winter tires on.
That was my waiting story.
Yeah, except you're not waiting. You're at work.
That's true.
I told you a story about the first time that I got snow tires on.
Yeah.
And I decided to wait it out. And I waited all day, the whole day. But it, like, once I embraced it and I just cleared my schedule and I was like, I'm not doing anything today other than getting tires on. Sorry. Whatever else I had to do that day.
Yep.
But I sat in the lobby that day and there were other people that were waiting with me and we enjoyed some conversation and I just settled into the wait and it was kind of a, I don't know, fun experience in the end.
Sure. Do you think like, just considering that, like, do you think it's not so much, or I'm just trying to unpack, why is waiting hard? And maybe it's not so much like waiting as this random abstract thing that's just hard, because it is, but maybe it has more to do with like our expectations that we set for any particular thing, or like the plans we have.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's sort of like, I mean, even with the boiling pot, it's sort of like, yeah, okay, I need this thing to boil so that I can do these other things that I want to get done. I have like this vision in my head for how things are going to go. That was certainly like, for me, leaving the house this morning, I had some expectation of what the tire shop would be like when I got out there. But I also had like a hope for my day that wasn't necessarily based in the reality of what I was going to experience. And that to me is part of the challenge, because it's like, when you have to wait for something, well, that's part of the point, is you can't make whatever you want it to happen right away. Yeah.
It's interesting. I think, we're all wired a bit differently, but my general way of being, of operating, is that I'm like a future oriented kind of, I guess, driven type person, where like I know what I want to do, what I want to accomplish, and I just kind of I'm more forward moving than like backwards looking. Everybody's wired a little bit different, but that's my general go-to. But I've learned in time, like I can swing really hard the other way too, to like I don't know if laziness is the right word, but chilling out. Like I can, so I've been working on like moderating that and finding the healthy middle in life. And I think in time that's been coming and been helpful, but so I just know, like, for me, I generally know the next thing that I want to do. So like I do have a hard time of like when that's interrupted or slowed down or whatever, it that's hard on me. And so I don't know, I'm aware of it enough, and also have kind of learned like these things that I'm, gung-ho about getting done or whatever is in the future. Often it's not like a life or death thing. It's not not a huge deal. So like I'm aware of this. So like I'm trying to temper some of those things, but also like I think there's merit in moving forward too. So anyway, so like I'm good with driving stuff. Anyways, point being, like I'm trying to learn the benefit of that slowing down, of the wait, and especially like the divine intervention that can happen in the interruption.
Yeah, that's really interesting to think about. Actually, is I don't know if it's fair enough to call it even God's habit of working in the waiting. Working in that sort of like the tension almost of like your expectations that aren't met. But I know there's this is from Henry Nouwen, who's kind of a big figure in like spirituality, Christian spirituality, and he tells a story of a fella who he was a pastor or minister of some kind, some sort of ministry worker, who it wasn't until later in his life he'd say his prayers, right, and have expectations for his day, and then something would interrupt it, right? And he talked about, he's quoting this other fella, he said it was so frustrating, right? Because you had these things you were getting done and these plans, and it's like, and then it was only later in his life he realized, like, that those were divine appointments.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And that's so true. I mean, you think about the Good Samaritan.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Divine appointment. This is an opportunity to be about the work of God, really, for the Samaritan who stops and slows down. Or you think about the road to Emmaus. And I had a friend write an article once about, would that story even be possible in today's world where when people are walking, people don't really walk, for one, but oftentimes, I think it was kind of in the craze of Pokemon Go when he wrote it.
Okay.
So people, this is crazy. Like, you could drive around. I was living in St. Louis, and I cannot tell you, like, the percentage of people who are walking on the sidewalk, and St. Louis is busy. Yeah. There's a lot of cars going by, and these people just be headlocked straight down on their phone on this game. I mean, maybe not all of them, but anyways, so, and now one just comments that, he was sorry that that particular ministry worker realized it late in life, because he found that to be something pretty powerful for his own work of ministry, and something like good to adopt at a young age if you can. Is this idea that it's almost like pay attention when there's the disruption.
That's very true.
Yeah,
very true. I mean, I know it experientially many times. Like, yeah, I mean, even like personally, like I don't write most of my sermons here at the office because I'm often distracted here. So I'll go other places, and it's not always the same place. Sometimes it's a coffee shop. Sometimes it's my car. Sometimes it's the library. I'm not telling anybody so that you don't go find me
and distract you.
Exactly. But there've been those moments where I'll bump into somebody either from the community or church or whatever in the midst of that. But then, like, bumping into people outside of church, like in the community, is often like generally a beneficial thing, and conversations are different with people than they are like on a Sunday morning. I don't know. So those are just in a very simple way. Like, I understand this, and come to realize it. Still not my favorite thing.
No, absolutely not. No. So, like, we're hardwired against it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway. So we're talking about all this waiting around stuff. This is the season of Advent now. And so Advent is, I guess, historically, I always thought it was about like waiting. Like I guess I thought Advent meant waiting.
Sure.
Technically it doesn't. Technically it means like coming or arrival or something. Like Christ is actually coming. And then the point of the waiting is, well, then we are people who are waiting for him to come.
Right.
So that, it's all there.
It connects with the Hebrew, actually. Like, I just learned this over the weekend, but at least two of the words for hope in the Old Testament, it's yakal and kavah. And they...
Were you watching the Bible Project?
You know it, dude. Yeah. Do you watch it too?
I have before.
That's a goodie. But yeah, so one does merely seem or mean just to wait. And the other one has more of a connection to like the tension of waiting or like expectation, but they both also get translated as hope. So like waiting and hoping, at least in the Old Testament, like at least in the Hebrew language, there is like a pretty strong connection, which is kind of the connection you're making here for Advent. Like the word technically means coming, but it also, like, you can't really get around the waiting part of it. Like, that's part and parcel to it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I in my adult life, I think probably since becoming a pastor, this season of Advent has actually, my family and I have really leaned into some practices and just kind of embrace the Advent season. as well as you can, I guess. Like we like it. We like it as a family. And personally too, I find, like, I don't know, like pastorally, I guess, I don't know, in our circles, you know, with other pastors and stuff, sometimes pastors will like, sometimes bemoan like the busy seasons, you know, like Lent and Advent. For us, it's because like there's additional worship services, and so there's other stuff to plan and prep and sermons and all this stuff. I've learned, I almost like, personally, it's almost like the more stuff that gets added on, the more I can actually like rest better. I don't, or like slow myself down better. Like I don't know how to say it other than it's certainly a faith practice, because it's like I could lean, like, I don't know if it's a mindset thing, you know, people want to talk about mindsets, you know, if it's like, it's busy, everything's hectic, I got so much stuff to do, blah, 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 you know, and then you get all
like, tell
wrapped
yourself that, over and over.
Yeah, if that's the narrative, then it's like, well, that's the mind frame you'll be in. But if it's like, yeah, this is awesome that I have all these things and the Lord will provide, and, you know, just kind of slow down and embrace it.
Well, I think too, just like considering, you know, what you're sharing at the beginning of this conversation, you know, with you being a more future oriented guy, focusing on sort of like what's coming down, what's ahead, and having a lot of capacity to engage those things. But then, you know, sort of like admittedly, like it being a little harder to like be like present or to slow down. Yeah. Like it just leads me to wonder if perhaps there being more going on during the season. I mean, it's sort of requiring you, right, to expend a little bit more of that energy on things that are closer, like more proximal,
could be,
to your life. And so like that seems like it would lead you to that place of like, present existence, which, you know, when you're in it, there's a delight for you. Yeah. It's just something I'm, you know, kind of just thinking back to the beginning of the conversation here. But I think that's, that is kind of the beauty of it too, in any sort of situation of overwhelm, because that's what we're talking about. If you bemoan a busy season, it's because you feel overwhelmed by it. But part of our resourcing almost as Christians is being equipped to engage with the overwhelm. I mean, a lot of what like the disciples go through, right, in following Jesus is encountering situations where there's, whether you want to say it's too much, you know, like just stuff, or if it's too much for them from like a, you know, feed these 5,000 people. Well, how the heck am I supposed to? I don't have the resources to do that. Yeah. You know, like there's a lot of stories that are overwhelming in the Gospels. But I think part of what God continually tries to communicate to us is that, well, yeah, of course there is. That's precisely why I'm here. Yeah. Right? Like rest in me as you engage in the overwhelm.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're not you're not God. Yeah, you're not the master of your schedule. I was just having this conversation yesterday with somebody too that was feeling the overwhelm of life, and saying, you know, just like she was explaining to me, like, you know, working till like 2 a.m. at home, and then waking up and trying to do it and parent kids and do all this stuff, and just and then it's like she crashed and was at just a really hard low spot, you know. And we were just talking about like, yeah, we get in sometimes into these like seasons of life where it's like, I just gotta just grind through it, just give more, you know. And sometimes it's not a season.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Or you got to watch to make sure that it doesn't grow from,
well, yeah, because
a short season into just a pattern.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's the thing, like being a future kind of oriented person that's like, you know, sort of set my sights on something and get there. And there's a lot of waiting in that, where it's like a lot of like, aiming for this thing. You're working in the waiting, getting there. And then like, I know that I've had in my mind frame a lot of times, like once I get to that thing, then it will, I don't know, then it will smooth out. Then it will be easier. Then it won't be so chaotic or whatever. But what I've learned in time is like, as soon as I get there, there's a new there to get to.
Sure. Yep.
It's like,
yep.
Well,
that's disappointing.
I know. I mean, it is. It can also be exciting, if
Absolutely.
it's something new or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we do need like purpose.
Yeah.
Purpose drives us. Yeah.
But it's also, it has been disappointing where it's like, well, that thing didn't like fix everything. Like,
yeah, it wasn't like a remedy for rest.
Nah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's because that's kind of, if I'm hearing you right. Talking about the challenge it is for all of us, in different ways, even with our calendars and schedules and just lives as we live them and plan them, to find rest.
For sure.
And I think in this season too, it's particularly poignant, not for everyone, but for a lot of folks. You don't have to be a pastor, having Wednesday services to feel just busy and stressed in the holiday season, And there's some
holiday season. The holiday season, and boom, boom, boom.
Beastie Boys.
Don't forget to hang up the sock. You don't know that one?
I don't know that one.
He'll be coming around the chimney down. Sorry.
Do you know who sings it?
Nah, I'll find out.
Do it.
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. I have a Christmas playlist. I'm gonna add it to it.
Okay.
Yeah. I collect songs as I go.
Okay.
Christmas doesn't have that many songs. Like there's quite a few for one holiday, but like you do run out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you hear them over and over again.
Well, obviously different variations.
That's right. Which sometimes are so different. It's like I get into this. But no, like yeah. So if for you, listener, if this season historically has been maybe disappointing, almost in that same way, where it's like. Everyone talks about how it's the most wonderful time of the year, right? And there's the lights and there's the parties and there's all this stuff, but you sort of find yourself while you're in it, and maybe as soon as it's over, feeling like let down by it, like you didn't, like either it was too overwhelming, there's too much going on, it just stressed you out, or you didn't feel like you came away with more. I mean, I think part of the invitation of Advent, certainly from the church's side of things, is slow down maybe, or wait,
Yeah.
or maybe it's a whole redirection of what I'm looking to for my remedy for rest.
Yeah. And so
we want to tell. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, this Advent season, at our church, we're looking at Luke chapter 1 as sermons. And so yesterday we were and it's the sermon series is called Foretold, which is this idea of, I guess, waiting for the promises of God to be fulfilled. So Luke chapter 2 is often, I think, what you may, you're likely familiar with it if you're familiar with the Bible, at least portions of it. It's Luke's narrative of the Christmas story is. It's kind of the one that a lot of people have heard. And so Luke chapter 2 is the Christmas story. Luke chapter 1, though, has a ton of stuff about it, like the foretelling of the birth of John the Baptist, the foretelling of the birth of Jesus, and then the fulfillment of these things. And so, and the interesting thing, though, too, is like, so Luke 1 will set up like, the announcement of John being born. That's what I preached about this last Sunday. And then later we'll see that John is actually born. And then there's the setting up of Jesus from the angel to Mary, and then Jesus being born. But even before that, in the Old Testament, obviously, we talk about prophecy a lot.
Yeah.
Both the birth of John, or the person who's going to fill that role of preparing the way of the Lord, that was foretold long ago, as was the birth of the Messiah foretold long ago. So basically the scriptures, like God does this a lot, where he makes a promise, then he fulfills it.
Yeah. Yeah, he does do that a lot.
Yeah. So that's kind of the arc of the Bible. And in the last sermon series we talked about covenant language, right? And so like to Abraham and to Moses and David, and so God is a covenant maker. That's a covenant is a promise, right? And so God is a promise maker, a promise keeper. As I said in the sermon, he's a foreteller and a fulfiller. So that's what we get to learn about God's character in the scriptural story. I mean, one huge aspect of his character is that he's a God who makes promises and he follows through on it. Like he gets it done. And so this whole idea of like the foretelling. So like in Luke chapter 1, in the first 25 verses, there's the foretelling to Zechariah from the angel Gabriel that Zechariah and his old barren wife Elizabeth, that they will have a child, have a son. And so that's setting up the fact that he will be born. So there's foretelling, and then eventually there will be fulfillment. So then the question for us here in this Advent season too, when we talk about us waiting around, at least often here I'll just say it sorry, sometimes my mind goes faster than my lips, Kevin. Has that ever happened to you? So a lot of times we talk about Advent, or at least how I historically have, is like it means coming, and so it's like God promised to come and send the Messiah, and then he came, and he's promised he will come again, and he will, and we can count on it because of his past activity. But he also comes to us in the here and now, and that's important for us to remember too. Is that we're not. Yes, we are waiting for the final fulfillment, the full consolation of his promise for Christ to come again. Yeah. But he also comes now. And so like, and this is, I guess this is going back to like what we were talking about, like in those divine interruptions, in those moments that we're forced to wait, in looking around and noticing things different when we have to slow down. That's God coming to you in real ways, to make himself known to you, to find your rest, to find purpose, to look at the good works that he's setting up for you to do, to love your neighbors. And so my point in saying that is like, we're not like God is not far away. God is not a distant God. He's not just like looking down on you from heaven and like, as you're living life, and he's like, he's like he's actually involved. He's actually coming to you, delivering his word to you.
Yeah, and he's not, just to continue the image, right? Like, it's not like he's got his arms, crossed, and he's like, I'm going to make you wait. Let's see how you do, as sort of like a test. Like a lot of times, at least I think, the waiting, those interruptions and disruptions, not only are they things that involve us likely connecting with, talking with, meeting, engaging with other people, but Jesus himself, Matthew 25, I think it is, right, says that somehow, mystically, he is behind. Like Jesus himself is behind what we see on the outside as a person who's in need that we can help, right? Because he'll say to those at the end, when I was thirsty, when I was hungry, when I was in prison, you came and visited me. And they're like, what? When? We never saw you, Jesus. Like, oh, you did, So it's like, if we
whatever
have eyes
you did
to
to
see,
the least of these you have done to me.
Exactly. So we wait in that ultimate sense, like long view for the coming and return of Jesus. But we're going to have tons of opportunities in this season and, each day and week of our lives to be expectant for the moving of God in and among our lives.
Yeah. And I guess that would be my encouragement this Advent season, is, as the calendar fills up and you've got, unique opportunities or parties or special events or travels or all those things, like you can all of a sudden look at that full calendar and go, I can't wait till it's over. I would just, I don't know, if you can just change your frame of mind in it and go, okay, let's lean into this and watch God show up. Like, and I think, like, I don't know, I would say there's some intentionality and some discipline in this too. And that, like, this is where I would really encourage, like, the lighting of the Advent wreath, the daily devotion, if you can make the time to do these things, like, this is what sets you and reorients you on a daily basis, to the working of God. Like, to light a candle, to read some scripture, to pray, to rest, reflect, like,
those things do not come naturally to us.
Right.
They come supernaturally.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an absolute, this is why those are called spiritual disciplines, why they exist, right? Because, like, throughout the ages, the Christian community has found them so helpful for experiencing what we all long to experience. It's that rest that we're hoping to have, but it doesn't come. Typically, it's not going to just creep up on you and surprise you all of a sudden, and you'll totally lean into it. And that can happen as well, but those disciplines are ways for us to sort of inject that the pattern maybe of the kingdom, and of Jesus. Jesus did it himself. So it's like, how can I inject that into my rhythms so that I'm not just sucked along in a way with the maddening voices and rush of it all. Yeah,
absolutely.
We'll be here pausing and breathing on Wednesdays.
Yep.
It's 5:00 for the meal.
There you go. Today.
Yeah. If you're listening to this on release day,
12/4/24.
Come on down.
Boom.
Get yourself some food and fellowship at 5 and come rest with us at 6.
You got it. Peace, buddy.
Peace, brother.